Welcome to the Victory Multisport Podcast. This is Coach Sarge, and I am with Coach Kenny.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning, Coach Kenny. And a very special guest, Tandi Sherlock, Dr. Tandi Sherlock, veterinarian. How are you doing, Tandi?
Pretty good.
Yeah, great to have you. Thanks for coming on the podcast. Victory athlete, super mom, ultra runner, Ironman. We got a whole long list of accomplishments to unpack with you today, Tandi.
So you can even say half woman and half amazing.
Half amazing. So outstanding. So we really appreciate you coming out. We're catching you while you're in town with us for race camp in June. Although the listeners, you're probably hearing this in July. So stick with us. It's going to be a great story, and lots of amazing things are going to come out of it. So I'm going to turn over to Coach Kenny, who's probably known you somewhat the longest through Harley.
Yeah. Well, I think it's funny because I actually think you look more tired right now because you had your whirlwind flight, got in at midnight, probably had to get a rental car.
Yes.
And then you came right here for a podcast.
Yep. May as well have stayed awake.
You actually looked more fresh in Cocodona 250 than you probably do right now.
That's possible.
Yeah, I love it. Your story, Tandi, is absolutely incredible. I think I remember the first time talking to you, you were referred to us by another legend in that little Prescott area that has pumped out these amazing ultra athletes, and you had reached out to me looking for some help on triathlon, and that I think is just the crest of your story. I mean, it goes much deeper. Tell us just a little bit about you. Bring us up to speed on Tandi.
Oh, gosh, how far back do we go? Yeah, I remember making that phone call to you after talking to Harley, and you were just welcoming on the phone. I was in Sedona at the time on a horse ride or something. Just felt so energized after talking to you and ready to sign up more than a year before the Ironman I had wanted to do. So,
what took you to the phase of, like, how did you just pick Ironman? Like, were you doing a lot of endurance events leading up to that?
Basically, I was just running at that time, but I guess it's hard to do anything that they call a half, so I didn't want to jump in and have that be my goal. I wanted to do the full thing. So at that time, I was definitely running. I had completed probably 3 100-mile runs, but wanted to branch out. I had
just 3.
Yeah, just 300 miles, right? Yeah.
Right. So I wanted to branch out into triathlon, and I had been cycling some, but not a ton. I knew I needed help with such a big goal.
So you don't just land on a 100-mile run and do it 3 times. What was your background growing up? Were you always athletic? Because I know your children are very athletic. Were you always like a primetime athlete? Were you concentrated in one area? Were you a runner, swimmer, biker? Like, what were you growing up?
I was into horses a lot, but my dad was a track coach, so he kept pushing for me to do track. And he was specifically the hurdle coach. He had ran hurdles for the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, and my brother excelled at hurdles, but I did not. I think I'd be better now. I'm probably braver now than I was at that age. So I settled kind of into the 800 meter, but also didn't like it. If I got ahead of people, I'd start walking, and he would get so mad at me and run around to the other side of the track and yell. So I tried track, didn't really love it, did some volleyball. Didn't really excel in high school, but enjoyed it. Mostly just wanted to be outside, doing anything I could outside. My dad introduced me to trail running. We were on a trip in South Dakota near Deadwood, and my mom dropped us off, and we did a point-to-point 6-mile run, and that was the first trail run I remember doing. I knew that was where I wanted to be, outside running, not around a track. So that's how it kind of started.
It's pretty cool, though, that, it wasn't necessarily the function of running, but it was the environment in which you were doing the sport in that was not attractive. And so by finding the outdoor space and combining it with the athleticism, it kind of sparked you.
Yeah, exactly.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
So, Tandi, you are a veterinarian, and just correct me if I'm telling the story incorrect, but so what? And you love horses and horseback riding, and you have several dogs, even though Kenny does not like to ride horses.
No. I had an issue one time.
Every time they take your picture, you look like you're like
I'm mortified.
Yeah, exactly.
They hate it. They hate me.
You can't let them know that.
But I always get the one that's the most rambunctious, and then they know it. And so then and of course, Say has to take a picture of me and saying, a jackass on the back of a jackass. Okay. And the helmet looks awkward. Everything about it.
They're reading the room, Kenny, just like you read the room.
I've done 7 Ironmans, 17 marathons, everybody, 17. And I get off the horse.
Are those running races?
Yes. I get off the horse and I'm more sore in a 1 hour, my legs, groin, because I'm holding on for dear life. There's no relaxation, Tandi.
I get it.
But Tandi, on the other hand,
oh my God,
loves it, right?
I do. And
I think she rides to work on it.
I do, right.
With wild boars and pictures. It's really awkward.
Yeah. I ride her to work. People brag about I'm the coolest vet that they could ever have. So
I can only imagine. Yeah. Absolutely.
But that was one of the questions that was pretty funny when I told people I was doing Cocodona 250. Why would you do that if you have 3 horses? The other common one was, I don't even like to drive that far. So
oh yeah,
that's what Kenny had said as well. So, but yeah, into the horses.
So that love of animals got you into your career path. I
Yeah.
mean, that just, if you can just explore, when did that kick on?
My parents, I do not recall what they said since I was 5. I said I wanted to be a vet.
Oh, okay.
And it's funny because with my kids, I'm telling them to keep their options open. Don't be blinded by one thing. But it did work out for me. I love the variety of it. And it's practically like cross training. I'm on my feet running around all day long. So
right.
It helps if you have goals of being on your feet for 5 days in a row at a race.
Well, I think that, when someone would start to follow you or start to see your story and hear all the things that you do personally, professionally, and so forth, it all kind of matches, right? It's a perfect story, right? I don't know if we can even get a picture of you without your dog or a horse in the picture. So, which is cool. I'm not objecting to that. It's just like, that's always when we ask for a photograph to post or something of Tandi, it's always even on the podium. The dog was on the podium at one of the races. So
he likes to be in all the action.
Yeah, exactly. So that's awesome.
Well, I think one of the funniest things is Tandi is one of the most soft-spoken, loving people I know, right? So in the Victory group, and I remember getting, again, I don't know her sense of humor yet, and I'm finding out more and more since this Cocodona race. I get a picture when we had that wave of like a 3-week period where we were putting our swim caps on and goggles,
correct,
and doing everything under the sun. And I remember getting one. She was in a medical procedure and she had her Victory swim cap on, and it just looked like a scrub, she's in there doing her thing, but it was the greatest thing in the world.
Yeah.
That was the first glimpse of what Tandi has inside.
Of the dry humor of Tandi.
Yeah.
So
I contribute that to my father as well.
So going back to, okay, so you said 3 100-mile runs. What made you at that point say, I want to get into an Ironman? Because and did you do triathlons leading up to that? Because I don't believe you had anything in there.
No, I definitely needed to learn how to swim. Well, I was at one of the 100-mile run that I did called the Bear from Utah to southern Idaho. It's a point-to-point. So I was doing that run and started to ask people if this was harder than an Ironman, and they said, yes, it's definitely harder. So then I decided, well, maybe that is something that I could do. I had always been intimidated by the idea. So that's when the seed really started to grow, and that was probably 10 years ago, 2014, when I was doing that 100-miler.
Yeah, so I think that's a good point, Tandi, because there's a lot of people that come to us or come around us or we run into that, talk about, oh, I could never do that. Or they're like, I could do the bike or I could do the run part. But so I think that the intimidation factor is certainly there because it's a very lofty goal. There's no doubt about that. 140.6 miles under your own power and 3 different sports in a single day. That can be a very daunting task, of course. But I think what I'd like to bring out is how, if you really break it down and you really kind of dissect those pieces, and maybe it's the swim that's your most, needed sport of the three. Maybe you don't own a bike, but you can bike because you have biked, at some point in time, and your head's in the air, not face down in the water in the lake and that type of thing. So, but breaking through some of those barriers, but, having small wins that stack up to becoming, larger wins, I think is, a really important thing. You're doing 100-mile race. I'm intimidated by 100-mile race, right? I don't know that I would ever sign up for that, but I would sign up for 140.6 in a different way.
Sure. It's
just an odd situation in my head. So I have to sort that out someday, right?
Yeah. It's waiting for you. It's very similar to, you guys always say, eating the elephant by one bite.
Yeah.
People always talk about running aid station to aid station, and that is certainly what you do. You just kind of reset each time and reset your mileage. And now my next goal is 11 miles down the road, the next aid station, and get in there. And it's ultra running. It's usually like a party at those aid stations. There's food everywhere and people, and the most amazing volunteers you'll ever meet out there. So it's certainly doable.
Yeah.
So leading up to those 100-mile runs, were you doing regular marathons? Were you doing 5K, 10Ks, or did you just, in Tandi fashion, go right for a 100-miler?
Yeah, that was the other question that came up a lot when I was signing up for the Cocodona. When did a 5K stop being enough? So I think it was just out there. You hear about somebody else having run 100 miles, and it doesn't seem doable, so maybe then you have to try it. See what you're capable of. I had run a few marathons, but pretty quickly got into ultra running. We have a pretty famous local race called the Man Against Horse, where the horses are running against the people, and I had started competing on my horse in endurance at that race, but it's pretty difficult for the horses. They're more fragile than you would think, so it's a super rocky race, and then I decided I would try to run it instead of using the horse. So that was very special. I knew a lot of the riders still riding in the race, so it was kind of like having my fan club along with me out there. That was my first 50-mile run, and it was actually also my first marathon, although it was like 26 miles, I guess, or 25 instead of 26.2. And then I did do the Rock and Roll Phoenix Marathon years ago. It was my first road marathon, but it wasn't my favorite. It was so many people, and I remember having to be shuttled, and just like the simplicity of getting on a trail and having less people around. So
understood.
Yeah.
So in those years, you said it was almost 10 years or more that you're considering Ironman and doing all these ultras and endurance road, endurance trail racing. Were you just self-training? You were just looking things up, or just self-training whenever I could grab a little bit of time with two pretty young kids and a full-time job.
Sure.
So certainly not doing it like I am now with all you guys' secrets.
There was something you said there, and I think it was, I don't want to gloss over it by no means, but when you just said, sometimes you just got to go for it and see what you're capable of.
Right.
I think that is so incredible. We're seeing, Tandi, you've climbed that ladder inside of Victory to the highest level that you could go. I mean, you're dancing on stages that a lot of our crew wants to dance on or wants to just be around, and they're life-changing journeys. And then we have a whole other crew that are seeing that, and they want to just get in and figure out, okay, if I can do a half marathon, could I do a 70.3? And I think that's part of the thing is that we're trying to tell all these athletes, you're capable of so much more than you even think.
That's right. That
5K that once was hard for you might be a warm-up now. And that's just incredible that, and the thing that is that I admire about her is how much of a gentle soul she is and how she's talking. Like it just lulls you into that, oh, I'm at peace.
Oh, but she's fierce.
She is. She'll put a dagger in you. Because I was saying like with Val, because Val was down at Cocodona, and she was saying, oh, Tandi's well aware of who's in front of her and who's behind her, and she's going for it on this loop, and she's pushing, and she's going to come in, get aid, get whatever she needs, and we're moving her
and bounce out
because she's fully aware of it. And I think a lot of the things that you get into, you're very close, if not on podium, or so like you're not even just saying, I'm going to see what I'm capable of. You know exactly what you're capable of, and you're dominating. I mean, it's insane.
Absolutely.
And the humility that comes out of her too is like, I don't think, and I'll never forget the phone call in Ironman the day before we were talking. Yeah, coach, I think this might be the only one I do. I don't know if I like this, so I'll just go out tomorrow and qualify for Worlds.
Right.
It's absolutely insane to me.
But I think that it's back to that point about you got to just see what you're capable of. I think that happens a lot for all of our athletes at different distances, right? They're concerned about the 5K, or they're concerned about their first half marathon, and those breakthroughs do happen. The point I wanted to make is, kind of back to a military phrase or philosophy of you can never stop someone that won't quit, right? So it may take them longer, but if you ring the bell, you're done, right? It's over. They take your stuff away from you. They send you home. But if you never ring the bell, then it's the responsibility of the entire team to drag your butt across the finish line, right? And crawl, roll, walk, however you have to get there, you get there. And I think you exhibit that, you definitely exhibited that. I think you crawled. I think you had to do everything possible to get up some of those hills in Cocodona, and every other place that you've been. But that's the type of mentality, and that's the type of spark that people are attracted to victory for. They're attracted to these endurance sports. They're attracted to these distances. They're attracted to, the moniker that they now get to wear from accomplishing those things. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, I would just add that if you're considering doing these things, I say go for it. One of my favorite quotes is, "Fear is a liar," and it's just so true. I was afraid of the Ironman distance, and even that morning, just giving myself a pep talk, especially to get through the swim. You just have to believe you can do it, and don't take no for an answer. Like you said, don't even think about the bell existing. So
That's right.
Won't be tempted to ring it.
Right.
I think you just channel. When else in your life are you allowed to have the stubbornness of a toddler? You just don't take no for an answer and keep your eyes on the prize.
It's funny she's using that because I remember Jeff Anderchak before Ironman Penn State. He was really struggling in the water, and I'm not sharing anything people don't know.
Right.
And Jeff would tell you that too.
100%.
And he went into team camp last year. He came up with high expectations to get in that open water. Mm-hmm. And I remember sitting at my stepson's lacrosse game, and they were in the semifinals. A lot of Quaker Valley kids. Jeff's kids are quick QV too. And he texts me, and his text was, "Coach, what an eye-opening morning. I panicked. I froze. I'm going to keep working. One of three things is going to happen. I'm going to time out. They're going to pull me because they think I passed away in the water, or it's going to happen. But I'm okay with any of those three to go this distance." Mm-hmm. And it's that will to fight. And that's the thing that's so endearing with our athletes that come into victory. There's a fight inside them.
Oh, yeah.
And we don't know what made your fight, Tandy. And we don't know what made Tanz's fight, his fight. And Sarge's, we all have that different fuel that burns us. And it's it's such an honor to get to be able to have a little taste of what drives Tandy and what drives Sarge and that's just so cool. But hearing you say, the stubbornness of a toddler, and it's okay to say, I'm not quitting and I'm going to keep my eye on the prize.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. And I think you guys have talked about how if you want to go, I'll mess up the saying, but you need a village, and we'll get into Cocodona, but I can certainly start now by saying I couldn't have done it alone without you guys, without my crew, without my pacers. So it's really touching, the love I could feel coming, knowing you guys were tracking me. So that was very important.
Yeah, even though you didn't get any of my texts.
No.
So, my congratulatory texts, my motivational texts. I had some very insightful ones in there too. So.
Okay, so just for the Victory crew, because we got a little inside joke here, and for all of the listeners. So Sarge is really on top of everything. So the past couple weeks, he keeps saying to me, is Tandi like not replying? And I'm like, no, she's replying to me. She's telling me she's coming in Thursday night. She's good for the podcast. She's good for talking to the team at camp, all this stuff. Communication's great. Well, I don't know why she's not. And Sarge is like, yeah, ask him about the race camp. He's getting ready to fight. He gets worked up if somebody not. So we find out today, Tandi texted, hey, where are we going for the podcast? I said, oh, he replied to you 2 days ago, and I just screenshotted it so she had the address.
Right.
She shows me her screenshot. Sarge is not
in there.
Not even in there. It's like a ghost. Then we find out that Tandi had Sarge blocked in her phone.
I think it was by accident.
I don't even know how to block people, so it had to be.
I'm going to chalk it up for Tandi didn't know how to do it, but I love it. That's going to be
it's the new iPhone.
That's going to be one of Tandi's new tags. Block Sarge, blocking Sarge.
Oh my God. Yeah, we just kicked that off. So, but I'm glad it was a technical issue and not some kind of a relationship issue with an athlete coach.
Nope.
But no, we got that squared away. But yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt about the support, the team around you, the village. Val came out from Pittsburgh to quarterback the Val's aid station for you, and just be around you.
She sure did. I hadn't met Val yet, but anybody who had met her told me she was the best to have coming out to be on crew, and she was basically a call-in pacer if another pacer didn't show or we needed her to fill in. So it was wonderful to have her there.
Yeah, so she was the crew chief of that pit, right? So she
probably second in command.
Okay.
I had a crew chief that was a local. I can tell that story now, how I met her, if you'd like.
Sure.
So she's one of my favorite clients. I'd known her for years. She brings in dogs. We kind of agree on how we let our dogs live our life and let them run loose on the trails at our own risk. And so she'd often bring in an slightly injured, maybe lacerated on a fence. Or
got into some stuff, right?
I had a bond over letting the dogs live their best life. So one day I was probably wearing one of my 100-miler belt buckles, and she noticed it. And she had told me she had just had the time of her life crewing for her friend at Leadville, 100-miler. So kind of filed that away. She said, please, if you ever do anything like that, need help, I would love to crew for you. So I ended up signing up for Cocodona in November and texted her about a month later, and she was all on board. I think she researched the race as much as I did and got her ducks in a row. And even the day before the start, she was not willing to miss the pre-meeting. And I guess I'm a little been there, done that enough. I don't feel like they're going to say anything earth-shattering of those that you don't already know about. So she stayed there. She camped at the start line. She was all in and committed. So couldn't have done it without her. Shout out to Ginger.
Yeah, it's great. So it was awesome that maybe they worked together real well then and, got along and made it work for you. So
they did. There were 3 perfect strangers on my perfect crew, Ginger, Val, and Cody, my college roommate from college in Nebraska. So she flew out from South Dakota. They all got to meet up and hang out while I was out doing a lot of work. So I still am having them fill in the gaps. I want to know everything that they did while I was out there and getting some funny stories. Something keeps coming up about cheese. Val will have to elaborate on the cheese story, so I'll let her do that. But, it was just...
I can only imagine.
Now everybody's mind is going crazy on what that would mean.
Val runs for cheese. Val runs for Marks. Val's who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah.
So, Tandi, before we go into Cocodona, can we jump back to Ironman Arizona?
Yeah.
So you get your training, you're rolling. You came to my Ironman with Harley, Sniper,
The year before.
Yeah, the year before. You got to meet Coach Bowes, Coach Sarge. You got to be on the other side of the fence. Did that day like light your world on fire, seeing what you were about to do? Did it give you apprehensions? Like, what were you feeling that day? Because I didn't get the honor to meet you that day because I was on the other side handling a lot of stuff going on and 140 things on my mind.
Yeah, 140.6 things.
I remember seeing you at one point and running with you a little bit and introducing myself, but you may not even remember that. I had volunteered that day at Ironman just to get a taste of it and see the people. I was early on at one of the run stations, so got to see the front runners come by. But I think my overall takeaway from that was more intimidation. I think just standing around the start line and watching everybody get in the water was kind of mind-boggling to me. But it was a great time, and I could feel the connection of victory there. Sarge carrying the flag around, and one of my first memories of Sarge, we'd be at one point, and he'd be like, "Okay, we're moving," and he would just take off at a dead sprint, and I'm like, I can't even keep up with Sarge moving.
That's probably why she blocked you. Just saying. I've been there. He's a bully on race day.
I am. Just if you want to survive, just try to keep up with me. So.
Yeah, I found out I'm not a sprinter, so that was something I probably already knew, but to go from zero to we're moving to the next spot and try to keep up with Sarge. Good thing he had the flag. He was so far ahead. Had to watch for the flag when I couldn't see him anymore.
Well, that's always our challenge, Tandi, is when we have 3, 4, 10, 27 people in a race, when it gets to a certain point, we just stand still and let everybody pass us. But when we have like 3, we had Sniper, we had Harley, we had Kenny in that race, and we're trying to get, and then they start getting spread out, and someone's coming off the bike, someone's going out on the run, and we're just, we get moving. So it's awesome. But I appreciate the shout out. Sarge does run fast for a very short distance. I'll beat you with 15 seconds of pure intensity.
Sure.
So you probably were just intimidated watching it. But I think if you had your wetsuit on, the intimidation turns into just that nervous excitement, like it's about to happen.
Yeah. I mean, at that point, I didn't even own a wetsuit. So I just felt in over my head, but I knew.
Did you even have a bike at that point?
I did have a bike. Probably not the one that I ended up competing on, which is still a loaner, but kind of permanently mine. I had a bike, but I wasn't cycling anywhere to the degree that I needed to be. So it was kind of a wake-up call I needed to know what I was up for and how far I needed to come, but it didn't scare me enough to not do it, I guess.
So let's go race morning. So now we go a year later. It's you walking in there now. So you've had a year of training, you've brought your running up. And what was really interesting, I know Tandi swim, I know her bike very well, and I know her run. I watched you come out of the water, and it might have been, if there was 100 people in your age group, and I don't remember what the exact number was, it might have been 98 or 99 or 100 in her age group in the water.
Yep.
Then the bike, like 40th in the age group. And I remember texting somebody and I said, watch her run.
She's going, Scott and I, it was our group.
She's going to run everybody down. All of a sudden, down to 5th or 4th or something in your age group. And it literally was like wild. Mm-hmm. Just watching that was incredible. So tell me about your day there. So entering in the water, that's always going to be, if you ranked your 3,
yeah,
that's the one that gives you the most fits, right?
Yeah, I would guess that's the majority of your athletes as well. So again, if you don't think you can do it, just test yourself. So we'd had a practice swim the day before, and if you're ever at a competition and are allowed to practice swim, I completely recommend that. It just helped me know exactly what it would feel like getting in that water. And Arizona's known to be really cold, but we were fairly lucky that year. It was quite a bit warmer than the year you did it, so that was really good. But the morning, I was just ready to go. I wanted to get started, so somehow I didn't feel super nervous. I think it was just had to do with the practice swim and you guys having me ready for everything. Mm-hmm.
I think that, in some cases, those moments when you're ready to do it, if you've been focused and you had 12 months, probably slightly more, but really from that first time you saw Kenny race to your exact race, same venue the year later, I find personally, and I find this in other athletes too, it's like you get a calm, like, I don't know how this is really going to go, but I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
Right. And if you can get to that place in your head, to your point of just do it or just get in there and get going, I think that can happen. I remember sitting in Kenny's driveway when we're signing up for all these races, when we first started, like my first year in, and even my first day in the pool with him, I'm drowning. Like I am like 25 yards, because I'm fighting. I'm trying to use every muscle in my body to try to get 25 yards. So I'm tired, I'm stressed, but I'm like, yeah, if I keep doing this, I think I can figure this out. I think I'll be okay. And then okay became, I think I can go to Lake Placid and do a 6 hour and 20-minute, 112-mile bike ride at 8,000 feet of climb, which I did. And so, just stacking things on top. Now, we were still having angst that first year when I could do the bike in 6.5 hours about tying milk jugs to my butt because I'm worried about the swim myself. It's my first one. It's 2.4 miles. But buoy to buoy.
Right. Coach
just
Hayden,
keep going it.
Hayden, my coach is Hayden, and he had told me to just swim happy. So I think that was my most popular chant.
It's great advice.
And maybe it made me go a little too slow. I was a little too relaxed, but got it done and didn't feel tired, shockingly. So then moved on to the bike.
It's interesting that that Arizona race, I was in it and the water was really cold. My face was numb. That first 400 yards, 500 yards, your forehead, your face. But the interesting thing on the bike, because I'm used to here and seeing a dead deer on the side of the road, no big deal. There was at least 2 or 3 coyotes on the road. And it was odd to me, very odd. Like, what is that? Where are we at? Seeing the cactuses, the coyotes coming down that hill on the bike. And it was for me the first time flying my bike, being in a different spot that I'm not used to, seeing different type of animals. It was just crazy, but it was enjoyable. But okay, so you're out onto the bike now, you're moving, you're feeling pretty good. How did your system set up for the run? Because sometimes even as strongest runners, if they mismanage the bike and the swim, it could take their whole run. And it sideways, didn't for you. Yeah. It did not make anything sideways.
I guess my nutrition was dialed in. I got off the bike and was just maybe so happy to be off the bike that I was so happy to be running, since that's my comfort zone. And I guess it's common, but I couldn't believe how good I felt that first mile and probably went a little too fast. But better to be feeling good and getting after it than not feeling good. So yeah, I had used concentrated tailwind, and that worked on the bike and just felt great. And it's basically 3 loops out there. Sometimes the wind can be a factor. It really didn't come into play until the 3rd loop, and then, getting back home on that back side of that 3rd loop was challenging. And again, I was so ready to be done with the bike. And
Tandi, that day, did you feel in any of the 3 distances? Because in my races, I always feel like, okay, at 2.2, I'm ready to be done out of the water. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be done. And then you get so excited to see your bike. And then at mile 85 to 90, I want to be done. My butt's sore. My legs are sore. I'm sick of drinking this stuff and eating this stuff. I can't wait to run. Yeah. And then you get out there and it's now I have to run 26 miles. Did you feel at any point in any of the 3 distances, obviously you said you couldn't wait to get off the bike, but were there certain mile marker moments that day when okay, this swim is dragging on, let's move it? Did you feel that way at all?
I was surprised during the swim when I saw the exit ramp. I thought I was imagining it. It seemed to come up quicker than I thought. Mm-hmm. So the swim, shockingly, didn't drag on. The bike, you mentioned mile 90, that must have been just when I was ready to be done. I think that's when the wind started to hit. And the butt was certainly sore. So at that point, I wanted to get off the bike. But otherwise, I feel like the day just went by pretty quickly. contrasting it with the ultra runs, they're just a lot more relaxed pace. You get into an aid station, you're expected to stop and hang out for a while. I tried to stop on the run at one point and visit with my fans that were there, and they were moving me on. Don't stop. So I don't know that I love the frenzied part about the Ironman, but it's something to get used to, I guess.
Did you know you were clicking it off in the marathon?
Well, certainly it's a lot more fun to pass people than to be passed. So I guess I don't actually swim slow. I was faking that so that I could pass people. No.
You're holding. See, I look at Tandi's build and I'm like excited to swim with her today. And because of your length, I think, and the interesting thing with her is she said it earlier, I don't like speed. Like a lot of your trainings have not had speed even entered into it yet. And you're still, because of the distances you're doing, it doesn't make sense to do speed runs sometimes in a 250-mile run.
Right.
It's just managing mile after mile after mile. But like if you mix some speed swim intervals in, some track days for her, like our marathon for Nice, like your next training block could be really, really interesting.
Yeah, I guess time will tell.
Interesting, exciting.
Yeah, speed.
You don't look happy about it.
Speed is more of a 4-letter word. Speed, sped. Yeah, I guess that's why I like the 250-mile distance. I don't like to go fast, but I'll try.
I don't like to go fast, but smooth was fast that day too.
That's right. Smooth is fast. So as much as you're going to resist, or you say you're resisting, you're in for it, and you're going to do whatever the coach gives you because it's going to make you better and stronger, and you're going to have a better day in Nice or whatever races you do between now and Nice. So,
and that's
we know that about you. So, and that's what we love about you, right? So, as much as you'll grumble and be grumpy about it, you'll still do it, and then you're gonna be on fire when you come to the race day.
Well, and that's just it, Coach. I think I'm going to be done with Ironman and get back to ultras.
Oh yeah.
We race, and again, it may not be your ideal. The funny thing is, it may not be the ideal cup of coffee that if you're going to go out and run a race, you may want this or you may want that, 250, 100. But it just shows if you put a focus on something, anything's possible. And anything was possible that day. You chased down a knee spot, and you didn't have, to your point, you're a very fast swimmer, but you held back so you could catch people on the bike and on the run, and you qualified for Nice. And so Nice is when is it?
October.
September 22nd.
September. Late September.
Okay, so you're now shifting out of that Cocodona 250 block, starting to move probably more into that triathlon blend.
Yep.
And that's the kind of the cool thing is when you look at, a lot of times people say, hey, is it possible to have 2 A races within a year? And yeah, it is. I mean, and it wasn't like her A race was a 10K to try to make USAT nationals or, an Olympic distance try. It was a 250-mile run and now a 140.6. And oh, by the way, it's in France. Oh, by the way, it's going to be with the best of the best. And there we are.
Yeah. I remember I had the bug to possibly sign up for Cocodona, and then right before the Ironman, I had a random rest day before the big taper, which I don't get very often, and was looking, and Cocodona had one more charity bib spot, so I decided to jump in and do it. And then I told you guys after that and asked. Once I qualified, I said, well, there's something else we need to talk about. I have a little thing going on in May. Is that going to work out? So you guys have never hindered me in what I want to do, so we went for it.
Well, and that was were you nervous at all signing up for that? Because Cocodona, that's a massive, massive race.
Right. More than double what I'd already done in 100. It's nothing.
And the landscape, is it relatively similar in the hundreds, or is it more fierce? Because I remember talking to Harley, is the opening 20 miles is almost incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, it's notorious they brag about the first 50K being one of the hardest standalone 50Ks you can find. It has almost 11,000 feet of elevation gain. So, yeah, it's nothing nothing to underestimate. The whole race has over 40,000 feet of elevation gain, and we joke that if there's two trails and one looks nice and buttery smooth and the other one looks like a rocky drainage, you don't have to check your map. You know you're going on the...
You go on the tough one.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it was intimidating, but I had read, I guess, about people feeling depressed after an Ironman, and I guess I wanted to ward that off with another plan after the Ironman, something else to look forward to. I had volunteered at Cocodona the previous 2 years. This is only the fourth year the race has happened. So, if you get a chance, and that's another thing for athletes to do, go volunteer in an Ironman. If nothing else, that will push you over the edge to do it. You'll see all kinds of different people, body types, and just the will and determination, and it'll help you find it in yourself to do. So that's how it started. I volunteered probably on the day where people were on day one of the Cocodona. Maybe if I had volunteered where they were on day 5 or 6, I might not have had the same impression.
Energy was high.
Everybody was still having fun and not too many people vomiting. So
Everyone's toenails were still intact.
Maybe, yeah. So that kind of got me thinking that it was possible.
And it was.
It was.
You did it.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit, because you've used the term "we" a lot with you and Hayden. So how did you and Hayden doctor that up? Tell the listeners a little bit about some of your long training runs, because the average listener might say, how do you even train for 250 miles? Is that like a 1 day, 100-mile run? Like, break down what some of your trainings looked like. Some of the ones you loved the most, some of the ones you despised, because there were days you were getting out for, hey, easy run, and I'd see like 27 miles, and it was craziness.
Yeah. Basically every weekend it was 20 miles or more, and then during the week quite a few. I guess the biggest focus, I think Hayden and I were both learning, and maybe I just chalk it up that he was researching a lot, but maybe he was flying by the seat of his pants as well. We both just trusted each other. But there were 2 large training blocks of back-to-back days of 4 blocks. About a month, 3 to 4 weeks before Cocodona, we did a 4-day training block. So that was pretty intense. He wanted me to get up at odd hours of the night, and the training block prior to that one, I had done what he wanted me to do, but it just threw my sleep cycle and the whole family off so much. So the second block, I just got the miles in, but got up at more reasonable times. The second block, the first day, a few of my friends were going to there's an official Cocodona training run on that notorious first 37 miles, but I wasn't able to go there and do that. So I simulated what they were doing and climbed about 8,000 feet on my own that first day of the block, a little over 30 miles. And then a friend and I drove out to Crown King and met up with those other friends for day 2. So basically I ran from Crown King, a small mining town that we run through, to home the second day. My friends camped at the trailhead, and then we met up again the third day. But day 2 was about 40 miles of that block, and day 3 was a little over 20, and day 4 was a little over 20. So my longest run was under 50 miles. It was just basically time on your feet, practicing being tired, having tired legs, and minimal sleep.
Well, and it is, again, funny how he had said about getting up in the odd hours. If you remember one of the OGs, John Moose Miller, and Moose rode his bike across America in Ram, and he was riding every 4 hours, or his pull.
He was on a relay, but
yes,
because he had other teammates, but he was sleeping in the van while they were riding. Then he had to get back on.
And we had him doing that too. Like, hey, you're going to ride this period. You're going to come back for every 4 hours. You're going to get on the bike again. And it was like a whole weekend. And he's like, this to your point, this is like disruptive here. And I'm like, yeah, but it's going to be disruptive. It's not going to be disruptive on race day.
Yeah, the race week is going to be disruptive too.
Correct.
So.
We just wanted to get them ready. But it is interesting that and that's where you're seeing a lot of that in that 4x4x48 or whatever it is, where people are running. Coach Donald did it, running at like 3 a.m, 4 miles. And so you get that and understand that. But that is interesting to get your take on that.
But I also think that athletes that are listening and the listeners out there, understanding that we had you do that for a piece, but you were like, yeah, this is not sustainable. Right. So you couldn't do it for 6 months or 3 months or even, back-to-back weeks. And that's okay because we just adjusted, but it was still that feeling, and you still got some muscle memory from that experience, even though you only were able to execute that maybe once. That block. So the athletes out there, the listeners out there, that if it doesn't fit the lifestyle, then you're probably not going to be able to do it at all, right? So you do have to balance the optimal training for those of us that are not professional, right? That have day jobs, we have families, you got to go to lacrosse playoffs and things of that nature. You have to be able to work with your coach to balance it with your life, right? So instead of, people talk about work-life balance, we have work-life train balance, right? And so work-life train balance is extremely important to create a sustainable plan to get to a high goal, whether it's a marathon, an ultra, an Ironman, whatever your sport is. They do encompass a tremendous amount of training time. And so, but you have to make sure it fits the lifestyle.
Exactly.
I'm kind of going through it right now with the swim around Key West. So it's 12.5 miles. And it's a massive swim. And people keep saying to me that you're almost running a half marathon, but you're doing it in the water.
Swimming a half marathon.
Yeah. And some of the things I'm mimicking right now is I can't swim 12 miles. It's just too hard. I can, but like I'm stuck in a pool. I don't have open water. So, I've logged some 7-mile swims, 8-mile swims, 8.5. I'm going to do 9 next weekend, but I'm also coming back double swims. So I'm swimming hard in the morning, swimming in the afternoon when I don't normally swim, mimicking, okay, I'm tired, 3 o'clock. I have 8 hours to finish this 12-mile swim, and I'm just trying to okay, maybe I didn't fuel right before, so let me go in and swim now, tired arms, trying to mimic when I don't want to get in the water. I mean, my body is beat up. I have, it's almost like I have web feet, like I have cracks in my feet because I'm constantly wet. I'm constantly in the water, and it's all craziness, but it's trying to mimic running when you don't want to, swimming when you don't want to, getting in the water. But that's going to be, I think, and you said it, like swim happy. You remembered that.
Yep.
There's a lady I swim with, Jan. She's so fast. Again, so fast. And it's so beautiful watching her swim. The other day she came into the wall and she was kicking off for the next interval, and she looked me dead in the eyes and just said, "Stay with me, Kenny." And that will go on my swim cap. Stay with me, Kenny, because she wanted me to follow behind her and drag off her. But there's something with that term, stay with me. Like, I'm with you. I'm here. And I think watching the whole Cocodona week kick off was unbelievable. So I have some thoughts on there, and I'll weave them in. But as you get ready to toe the line, what does the leading few days look like for you? Is there a nervous build up? Because this isn't a 5K. This is massive. Like, what does that lead up feel like?
Yeah, it's not a 5K. Some of the numbers I would read, it's a 401K.
Yeah.
Pretty intimidating. I didn't like that number. I'll stick to 250 miles, 9.5 marathons. So it was a typical taper week, and I read the term taper tantrums, and that was happening. I tried to tone it down, but took some alone time when I needed it.
Were you feeling any aches or anything on your body, like because you weren't doing anything?
Yeah, I randomly bent down probably to pet the dog, and something happened in my left quad, and it bothered me for 48 hours right up until the day before the race, and then just went away. But the typical, like, achy, tired, feel like you're getting sick even though you're not. Although everybody in the house was sick right before the race, I somehow did not get it. Yeah, just the mind not too quiet because you're not getting the exercise outlet you're used to. But that all went away once I got on the start line and was around everybody else. And
how many athletes towed that line?
There were 301 signed up. I think maybe last minute a few dropped out, but close to 300, which was a lot more than they had previous years. So yeah, it was a big start line. They didn't tell us, but we were waiting in line to start, and the race was delayed about 10 minutes. They handed out, we wear a tracker so you guys can watch from home, and they were handing those out that morning. We couldn't be trusted with them overnight, I guess. So that was delayed.
I can imagine.
Yeah, that was delayed, and we finally started. It's a 5 a.m. start, but it turned into a 5:10, 5:12 a.m. start, but it was more light by then, so that was helpful. And off we went. Yeah, it was just good to be going, and I started probably in the top third of the race. It's interesting, my number was 92, and they said the numbers were assigned based on where Ultra Sign Up predicted you would finish, and I was like, wow, well, Ultra Sign Up sure believes in me. Let's see what happens.
Let's go. Let's go.
Be 92nd out of 300 people, but I'll line up where it tells me to, and that's what I did. But yeah, I had quite a few locals from Prescott were there, so we kind of all started together and eventually lost sight of each other, but it was definitely memorable. So you get going, and then 2 miles in, there's the first photographer, so I still need to purchase my pictures, but I have the biggest grin on my face, and that was pretty funny. But
the grin of feeling alive.
I guess so. We're moving. And then about 8 miles in, another photographer, and at that point I was probably still smiling, but I had my special hat with a face cover, so could only see my eyes at that point. Yeah, that first day, so they make you carry a minimum of 4 liters of water, but I talked to Harley quite a bit and other people, and he said he ended up needing like 7 liters or more on that first day. So I was able to carry 4.5 liters, and then they had water stations along the way where you could get 1 liter, and then later on another liter. But when we got to that second water stop, somebody had stolen about half the water. So
wow.
They said, and that's how, you guys are always talking about in triathlon, you're looking for the problem and addressing it when it comes up. It's all about troubleshooting, and luckily I had brought my water filter, not thinking I would need it, but at that water station was the last place we had a chance to filter water, so I filtered and drank about 1 liter right there and carried another liter. I ended up not running out of water, but a lot of people did. This was the first shocking part of the race. The climbs out there are crazy, but as I was getting close to the end of the climb, right before the 33-mile aid station, about 10,500 feet of climbing in, I saw 2 people at different places already laying on the side of the trail. I thought that was kind of early to be taking a trail nap, but they seemed to be doing okay. They weren't, I guess the kind of unwritten rule if you're in trouble would be to lay down on the trail, and they were off to the side. So I went by, but that was kind of eye-opening. Got into that 33-mile aid station feeling pretty good, and then it was basically a little bit downhill from there into Crown King, where the first time we would see the crew, and that was at mile 37. So I guess I was moving pretty well. I almost beat my crew into Crown King. We kind of came in at the same time, but they were so efficient. I think at that point they were more nervous than me. I'd settled in, and they just had nervous energy, so they were setting up, and they had everything I needed. I even asked for something maybe I didn't need just to test them a little, but
just to make sure they were on their toes.
Yeah.
Right.
They took great care of me. Ginger change my socks and shoes at that point. Well, maybe just my socks. But
If you do another one, I would like that position in the crew.
yeah,
Changing socks.
The sock guy.
Get close to the feet.
So. You know what they look like. Should have worn my flip-flops here. So
interesting that you not only have to plan for this particular kind of race to, the hydration plan of what you're carrying, where you're going to possibly pick it up, but now we realize that someone stole the water overnight and from the middle of the wilderness somehow,
so
basically. But
living out there,
so you have to plan to have a filter, stop at a creek or a spring, and filter that water so you can continue on. That's interesting. What other interesting dilemmas and or encounters did you have for that whole almost just under 100 hours that you were on the trail?
Oh gosh, there's so many.
that would the listeners would be interested in, that are just different than running a marathon.
In studying up and listening to other people's podcasts, the big question is sleep strategy. So
okay,
I was pretty nervous about that. I guess that's how I can do these endurance events. I'm kind of hyper, and sleep doesn't always come easily. So I was worried I would end up laying there not sleeping. So that was what ended up happening. So the first night, there's controversy whether you even try to sleep or not sleep. Obviously, during a 100-miler, people don't end up sleeping. You're just going to get it done in 24 or a bit over that, 24 to 36 hours typically. So I decided to try to sleep a little on the first night. Even if I just laid there and rested, I had in my mind that it would be helpful. And I kept kind of playing a little game with myself. Where I wanted to sleep was called Camp Kippa. And if I got in there before midnight, which I was turning 50 at midnight, my birthday was the next day. If I got in there, and I got in there around 11 p.m., so I had some pancakes and eggs and bacon and laid down. They had a nice little bunkhouse, fairly private. 2 other runners were in there. Laid down. It was definitely restful, but I would start to doze off and just like panic and wake up. What are you doing? You're in a race. How are you doing this? Like the Ironman frenzy coming back. So I tried to lay there for about 40 minutes and didn't really sleep, but woke up feeling refreshed and got back on the trail. So that was where I started to panic heading into night 2. I in my mind, I was like, if you can't sleep, maybe it's just over. I don't know. In my mind, I was worried that maybe I just wouldn't be able to function without sleep. But I got into Mingus Mountain on the second night at about over 100 miles, and well over 100, and laid down again, and same thing, just almost fall asleep, startle awake. I don't know how long I did that for, but eventually I had the crew set a timer to wake me up after 90 minutes, but I ended up coming out, and that was kind of a low point. I was worried, since I wouldn't be able to sleep, what would happen, but I sort of asked my dad for help. He's been deceased since 2021, and he just gave me the advice, I guess, to keep going. When you need to sleep, it'll happen. So we got back out there. Shout out to my pacer. You can have a pacer after the first 79 miles. My first pacer was Jen, a girl I normally run with. So she got me through that first day.
It's probably a different energy looking forward to that, huh?
Absolutely. That's another reset point, not just the aid station, but each time you have another pacer. So just fresh energy, although it's important to have your pacers prepared. They talk about having them prepared with the map so they can help you navigate. Pacer/babysitter, so you do not want to get lost. That was another big fear besides not being able to sleep. So they did well with that, but I asked all of my 7 pacers to tell me a joke at some point, and none of them had a joke. So prepare your pacers. I know.
You should block them.
I should.
She now knows how to do it.
Yeah. Can I get that? Okay.
Yeah. That's okay.
So, so I didn't sleep that night. Soldiered on into the dark for the second night with my next pacer, Dana, fresh blood. shout out to Dana. She's gotten the bug, and she's now signed up for what we call the Diet Coco. She's doing the 125 miler next year. So we went through the night, and she took me probably the next 30 miles over the first river crossing, and maybe it's better to go first. She's quite a bit shorter than me, and I watched her almost go down in the river. But we got through it. It's another good use of poles, and funny story. So another reason I had to jump in and do the Cocodona, my pacer Dana had said, if you do Cocodona, I'll have to buy you poles. So I knew I wanted poles. So she ended up buying me very nice poles from Lakey, and it's pretty invaluable to have those poles. I got them out at about 8 miles and actually never put them back in my quiver, kept them out. I hadn't thought about, they're just good for balance when your legs are tired and you're not doing as well as you think. So,
well, it's funny because watching the whole week, because it was live tracked and you could watch it, like I found myself, as did the whole team, like you would see them, I think Tandi, we're going to see her at this point, or I've been watching it. They're talking, like it was incredible. And I think you now have sensed it because you were seeing it on the WhatsApp, but the whole team, like their whole work days were wrecked.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Because they were waiting for you, or they wanted to be part of it. Like, so, and that's kind of the cool thing that I've always said is when one races, we all race. We all feel that connectivity of what you're going through. We may not understand it, but we're there. We're there in spirit. We want to be there. And like you galvanized that savage chat that week of Tandi's racing. I got to get up. Like, dang it, I missed her in the middle of the night. Like, and the thing that I think is kind of cool is you made it sound like there was doubt inside your head several times already, even into the first 150 miles. At no point on the WhatsApp, Val's pictures, seeing you had a cool, calm, and collected look every time we saw you on the screen, on the live tracker, an update from Val, a video of you. Like you kept your spirits neutral. Even though mayhem might have been breaking off in your mind, you just stayed the course.
Yeah.
And you ran happy, as Hayden says.
Yeah.
Just be happy.
I did, yeah. I always felt that I would be able to do it, and I didn't expect the lows to come on the second day, but in hindsight, all of my lows really happened on that second day, and then the rest was not so bad.
It's real interesting is that for me is, oh my God, she's at 140. Mm-hmm. She only has 90 left.
Right.
She only has 31 left. It's getting close. And then you start thinking like, 31, she's going to be done in like a half hour.
Right.
And here it's not that at all. It's like, it's another marathon and with elevation. But that when you start, like, do you say you can't knock a tree down with one swing? You're going to take 100 hours of swings, and eventually that you're going to slay the dragon. Yeah. And you did. Now, so you started at 92. Where did you end?
53, I think.
Yes.
You told the tracker off. Right. So there, look, you can see it in it, right? There's that. I know exactly who's in front of me and behind me. I'm coming for them. There was a female, and I remember at what point in the chat, she's coming. So Tandi may just take a very quick break. And I don't know who that runner was, but I knew you were well aware of it. But to go 92 down to 53.
That's right.
You probably had it in your mind. Yeah, the tracker, you might have me at 92, but let's see what we got in us.
Yeah, you just don't know. And a lot of the podcasts and other racers that have done these 200 plus mile races talk about the race doesn't really start till the last 50 miles. Mm-hmm. You just manage yourself and take care of yourself. So I guess that was part of my strategy as well. It's quite an adventure, but
well, your journey in Victory is quite the adventure. Hey, I just want to focus on an Ironman. I just came off. I think you won one of your races there because Hartley said, "Oh, she won the horses and age group," and then so we knew that type of caliber. Then you go out and you show up and show off right in your first Ironman, qualify for Nice. Then you come out in Cocodona. You 92 slotted, 53 is what you finish. Now you're going to Nice. But the thing I think that I love the most about it is you work in quiet. You do your work. You follow your plan. You trust your process. You go about the day-to-day stuff to make Tandi win, and you win at such a high level, but you've become, without probably even knowing, one of the biggest ringleaders in the Savage chat. They all admire you. They all look up to you. They all want to follow you. And you're leading by the front of the pack saying, guys, come with me. This is funner to do this together. And I think having the team see you this weekend in person, and just be around you. Like, I'm in awe that you even wanted to do a 250. Yeah. You're probably going to sign up for the Cocodona 401k. I feel like you are. We might have just created that raise.
401k.
Yeah. It was supposed to cure me of wanting to do it again, but I'm not sure that happened.
It doesn't happen that way, does it?
Yes, it does.
Does not. Does not.
I don't get the bug. But yeah, quite a race. One of the big highlights was that last night. I knew my son would be pacing me. We had to sign a waiver officially. You're not supposed to pace unless you're 18, but I don't think anybody would have questioned it. This kid's almost 7 foot tall. People ask me, has he been running? Well, just up and down the basketball court, but he'll be fine. We had done rim to rim together, and I had asked him, you're surviving? And he said, no, I'm not surviving. I'm thriving during that. So that was one of the cool things he said there. But
well, I remember, was he almost late for it?
He was. They got turned around or stuck in a little accident traffic. So,
well, that's what I remember Val saying on the chat. Tandi's coming in. Is his name Quinn?
Zane.
Yeah. Her son Zane's coming, and we're hoping they catch in time, and that would be awesome. I just ran 13-1 with Lorelei, and when your kid says they want to do something with you, it's a yes anytime.
Yep, and it also, you go into mama bear mode, so instead of worrying about myself at 230 miles in, I worried about him and was he dressed right? It gets pretty cold up there. The last mountain we had to climb was over 2,000 feet of climbing in like 2 miles, so scrambling up rocks. And last year it was 55-mile-an-hour winds and 8 degrees up there, so he shows up with just a long-sleeve T-shirt. Kids don't listen. So finally,
she's telling him off. What are you doing?
Yeah, block.
You're listening now.
Yeah, you got blocked in my phone.
You're listening now, Zane. Finally, I wanted to take a trail nap. Please, I need a nap. We're moving. He wouldn't let me stop. I fell asleep on my feet 3 times climbing that.
Yeah.
I was finally so ready to sleep.
Again, I'm in awe of it, because there were times when I'd see her during the day, shorts, long sleeve shirt, hat with that face shield on, and then at night, gloves, pants,
parka.
Yeah. Like, you had everything going on. Like, so that just when you think Arizona, 80, 90 degrees, 100.
Wild fluctuations, elevation.
Wild.
You got all kinds of things going on. It's desert, right? So desert is the most unstable environment there is, right? It's never consistent, especially, day to night, sundown, sun up.
Yeah.
Got all kinds of things moving around. Yeah. But having your son out there obviously kicked it into high gear, gave you some energy, brought you around.
To make him run. So we headed out, started running. I think Val got that on video, and I'm like, Zane, as soon as we're out of the video, we got to stop and walk. So we showed off and took out of the aid station running, but then I was able to run again. And this is the other thing, you set these limits in your head. Like I had heard a lot of my friends that had done it before. I end up hiking about 70%, running 30%. So you have that in your mind. Okay, well, that'll be the plan. But you got to realize those limits come from you, and you're the one that can change them. So I was able to run and didn't go with what I thought would be, the minimal running. But it was pretty funny. I would start to try to run, and Zane being 6'10", 6'11", he could just speed walk along. And so I kept pushing harder and harder, finally, to make him break into the run. So that was pretty.
But we see that in a lot of athletes. They'll self-impose goals or tripwires in their race that, my race is going to be horrible if I don't do this, or I don't hit this particular pace, or I don't hit this time. We're like, no. That's not how this works, right? It's going to, you can have goals like I would like to do well. I would like to hit these paces, but you have to be able to your point, Tandi, make those managerial decisions while you're in the race. The environment changes, the weather changes, the conditions change. You could have, in an Ironman, you could have a mechanical on a bike that changes the entire complexion of your, final time. In a 250 mile, 5 day plus, race, there's tons that could happen. There could have been thunderstorms, there could have been other adverse conditions that caused that. And doesn't mean you stop, doesn't mean you have to quit, doesn't mean you have to get pulled, but it's going to change the complexion.
Yeah.
And being flexible and fluid and resilient enough to be able to handle that mentally, sometimes physically if it's an injury or a minor inconvenience that you can still power through that's not dangerous, then you keep going. So I think that's just important for everybody to know. And so for those of us that have done, a 1 day race, now take that times 5 and try to put that, keep your head, attached for a 5. So, cool. Awesome.
Yeah. So again, if anybody's on the fence,
talk to Tandi.
Registration's closed. I guess the wait list for this year is as long as
Tandi will
double the entrance.
Tandi will recruit.
So Tandi, one final question before we kind of wrap up. So tell us about the finish.
The finish. I thought for sure there'd be tears, but actually the only tears I had when I watched Kenny's video he had recorded for me, that Val showed me at the aid station of Fort Tuttle. But the finish was phenomenal. Both kids were there, and Val, Ginger, everybody that had supported me through all of this. 93 hours, 17 minutes, and I was just ready to go to sleep. I didn't even have the energy to cry. It was just surreal to be done, and it was crazy. But that last climb was something, and just to overcome that and the whole thing, like you said, I had to, if the race reports are all on Facebook, if Victory athletes want to friend me to read the race reports, it's long. I don't know how you write a short race report over 250 miles, but there's a lot more into it. Some battles I did overcome, but I never had the lowest low I thought I'd have, so that was surprising to me. Or maybe I just had the right attitude, didn't recognize it as a low. It was just a challenge. So but the finish,
I think that's probably true. 100%, right? So you prepare yourself for that time where you think it's going to be so dark that you may not want to continue on, but you never get that low because you've prepared.
I guess that's it. That was surprising. So finish line, got the belt buckle. People ask if we run this for money. No, it's just a belt buckle.
Tandi's nickname during the day for me is Tandi. When she's racing the Black Widow, it's like she's ready to just take you out.
So I'm sure the feels have come at times, right, of the accomplishment of doing a 250-mile race and, all the things that you have stacked for the year. There's no way you are as even-keeled as you appear all the time, right? There's things that happen. So, and it's awesome for you to tell us your story and listen to some of the adversity that you had to face, and definitely encouraging when you talk about how people should just get in there and get going and,
see what you're capable of.
Absolutely.
For sure.
If you do the work, you're going to be able to get it done.
That's right. I think we'll end on that note. See what you're capable of, and if you put the work in, you'll be able to get it done. Great words of wisdom. Thanks, Tandi, for being with us today and being on the podcast while you're here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's awesome and incredible accomplishments. We're still excited for even more coming with your Ironman World Championship in Nice, France in late September of 2024 and beyond. I'm sure you're probably trying to dig up something that's even bigger than 250 miles.
I am on the wait list.
Daytona 500, but she's running it.
Yeah. So awesome. Thanks a lot. So appreciate it. So for all you listeners out there, please like and follow Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. You've been listening to the Victory Multisport Podcast. We'll talk to everybody very soon.